Hello, for Life here, bringing us a brand new deck profile, and today we got Fluffals. So Fluffals is probably one of the biggest decks I've been wanting to test out for Master Roll Revision, because it's freaking Fluffals. This used to be one of the best fusion rogue decks out there. I mean, heck, back when Cosmos was like a big thing, this deck was actually like really popular because Frightful Sheep was just able to just tear apart that deck, and it was hilarious. But, well, after Master Roll 4 came out, this deck really fell off the face of the planet. Sure, it was still playable in some capacity, thanks to some shenanigans you can do with fusing with your fusion monsters and stuff like that. And that was okay, but the deck was a shadow of its former self, and now between all of its new support that has come out during Master Roll 4 and at the tail end of Master Roll 4, and now that we're moving into the Master Roll 4 revision, it's a lot better. The deck is actually functional, so let's get on with it. I've been really looking forward to this, and good lord, I can't wait for the new stuff coming out later. Hopefully in August, if nothing gets delayed anymore. Moving on, let's get on to the first card. First and foremost, we got the Fluffal Doggy. Dog is like one of the best cards in the archetype. He's a Stratos. Whenever he's normal or special from the hand, once a turn, you can search out any Fluffal monster except a copy of himself or Edgemp Sabers. I believe at some point or another they thought they were only going to have one Edgemp, and then they added more, and that's why all the first like wave of Fluffal support specifically mentions Edgemp Sabers instead of Edgemp Monster, because that would have made more sense, but I digress. Just getting to search out Sabers too is nice, because most of the fusions do require him, or are generic and require any Edgemp, so there is that. But, well, he's still a really good monster, and combos really well with Fluffal Penguin. Penguin is another really good one, and is another definite 3 of. Once per turn, you can just summon any Fluffal from your hand, and if he's sent to the graveyard as fusion material for a Fright Fur, you get to draw 2, discard 1. He's basically like a better version of Elemental Hero Liquid Soldier, except he came out before Liquid Soldier, so I guess you could say Liquid Soldier's a worse version of him, even though he does basically the same thing, but summons a dude from graveyard. And now I'm just getting completely off track. Anyway, so yeah, Penguin's really good. Some people like to mess around with Bahamut Shark, with totally awesome, thanks to him, but I feel like that just doesn't come up enough to really happen and warrant being played, so I do not play Bahamut Shark for that reason. But however, Penguin is still an absolute necessity in order to play the deck in a really good light. Next up, we got the best of the Edgemps, Edgemp Chain. Edgemp Chain, just on any way of being sent to the graveyard, searches out a Fright Fur card from your deck to your hand. That's mainly going to be Fright Fur Patrick, but can also be Fright Fur Factory, Fright Fur Fusion, whatever you need, but most of the time it's going to be Patrick, which is really good. Patrick is what makes this deck work so well. And actually, I've been testing out like some like good old Patchwork engines with just basically triple Patrick, triple Chain, and like fusion decks that require poly. But I digress. This is a really good card just for that. He can also search out other copies of himself whenever he declares an attack, but that's an effect that you will never ever use, because you only can use one or the other effect. You can't use both. So if you use the effect to search a copy of himself, you can't use the effect to search a Fright Fur card, which is not good. I do not recommend it. It just is. I hate it when they do that, and like one effect is clearly better than the other. Moving on, we got Fluffal Bear at 3. I know some people like to play 2 of them, but personally I like 3 because he is just that good, and he's mainly used for his first effect, where you can discard him to set a toy vendor directly from your deck. He also has an effect where you contribute him from your field to, well, grab a poly from your graveyard, which is good and all, and does come up once every now and then. But for the most part, you're mainly discarding him to get your Toy Vendor straight from the deck, which is really integral, because Toy Vendor makes this deck just kind of be able to turbo through its stuff so easily, especially if you can get a Fluffal Wings into your graveyard right away too, especially since Fluffal Bear basically sets up that play right away, which is a really good play, being able to use Bear with Wings and just be able to just continue off from there. Next up, we got 3 Fluffal Owl. I've been kind of flip-flopping between playing 3 and 2 of them right now, but I feel like 3 is pretty good. He's a searcher for polymerization whenever he's summoned. You don't typically really use that effect often per se, because you want to be able to trigger Patrick, because that's just objectively better, being able to do +1 rather than just, I mean, this is still a +1 technically, but because you need polymerization so much in this deck, I do advise playing both Owl and Patrick. You can play 2 Owl if you really want to, because he does have another effect where you can pay 500 life points and fusion summon a Frightfur using him and other dudes, which is really, really good, because he's basically, oh, you don't have any polys? Well, I am a poly, so that is really handy as well. He's still a really good card, and I mean, who doesn't like getting more polymerizations than what you might need, because you are going to be turboing through your fusions so easily in this deck. Moving on to the 2-ofs, I got 2 Edgem Sabers. Because of the fact that there are so many Frightfur monsters that require sabers, and he's just a really good monster for me, he can just constantly recur himself. I do play 2. I've seen some people play 1, but I feel like that every time that I play 1, he gets like freaking called by like so easily, and then I am locked out of half of my fusions, which really, really sucks. I don't like that one bit. So as long as called by is a common card in the meta, I will always play at least 2 of these guys. Basically, if he's in your graveyard, you can place a card from your hand on top of your deck. Just supposed to summon him once a turn. Really good effect there. Also, just really good for just the fact that all of like the really good fusions require him. Moving on, we got 2 Fluffal Octopus. Whenever it's summoned, you can grab back a Fluffal from your graveyard. This lets you get back your bear, your owl, your penguin, all that stuff. Also, if you sent to the graveyard as fusion material, you can return 2 of your banished monsters to the graveyard. Pretty handy. I mean, it doesn't come up that often where it's really, really integral. But however, the big one is, of course, the recursion effect. Also, it's a level 1, so that makes for some really good combo plays. Next up, I got 2 Fluffal Sheep. Sheep is another really good one. If you control a Fluffal, you can just spell summon it to your hand, to your field from your hand. And then once per turn, you can return 1 other Fluffal to your hand to spell summon any Edgem from your graveyard, which is really, really good for what it wants to do. And well, it can also summon the Edgem from your hand too, but that doesn't really come up too often. You're mainly using it to revive your dead Edgems that you've used for fusion summoning. And basically what that does is it allows you to reset your owl, your penguin, your dog in order to use their effects again, so that, well, you can just keep on spamming out more dogs, search out more stuff, or more owls to search out more polys, etc., etc. And just, of course, being able to grab back your Edgems from your graveyard is great as well, because then you can get even more pluses off of like chain, like if you need to use multiple chain. Moving on, we got 2 Fluffal Wings. I kind of flip-flop between playing 2 and 3 of it, but I feel like that 2 is a bit better because if you play 3, it's a dead draw for the most part, and that's not good. Wings, basically, while it's in the graveyard and you control a toy vendor, you can banish it and another Fluffal to draw 1 card, and then you can send a toy vendor to the graveyard to draw another card. And then, of course, toy vendor has the effect where if it's sent to the graveyard, you can search out a Fluffal or an Edgem Sabers from your deck to your hand. So that is effectively a +3. Or I guess a +2 because you lost a toy vendor on the field, but I digress. It's a super good card for what it wants to do, and just letting you recoup your hand after you've dug through most of it or used most of it for your resources. And then I get the feeling we're going to get hated on for the next 2 choices, but I really like these, and they've come in handy quite a bit. The first of which is Edgem Cotton Eater, of which I'm testing out 1 of. Basically, Edgem Cotton Eater has the pendulum effect where once per turn, if you fusion summon, you get to draw a card. And again, that really helps mitigate the cost of fusion summoning, which, of course, who doesn't like a free draw? So I do really like that. He's got a really good scale too. I don't play any of the other pendulums partly because they aren't out in the TCG yet, which sucks, because this deck could... I mean, the pendulums aren't like amazing, but they would really help out because then you can summon out dog, owl, and penguin all in one go and just be able to just spam the board so much easier. And oh my god, it would have been amazing during Master 4 if we would have gotten the one of the other pendulums. I think there's one other good pendulum and I can't remember what it does, but I digress. And then 1 Edgem Saw. I really like being able to make Frightfur Leo, and Saw is required for that, but also at the same time, Saw has a really good effect where if he's normal summon, he can discard a Fluffal card, a Fluffal monster to draw 2, and then put 1 card either on the top of your deck or on the bottom of your deck, which then can let you stack your deck for Toy Vendor so you can use its effect more effectively. Pretty good card all around. I mainly use it for making Frightfur Leo, obviously, but really good card for what it does. It's not the best normal summon,
summon, but it is nice. I mainly don't really use it for the summon though. I mainly just use it to make Leo and just be able to burn for game. Moving on to these spells, we got good old Fright for Patrick. I've mentioned it a few times already. Fright for Patrick is an amazing spell card and is what really makes the deck work as just like a borderline tier 3-2 deck, give or take. I don't know what tier this deck would be at, but I digress. Basically, when you activate it, you add Polymerization and then an edge jump from your deck to your hand, and yeah, it's a +1, and then if you add Chain, and then you use the Chain for something, or you discard it, or it gets into the graveyard in any way, the Chain will then search out another Fright for Patrick, so you can do it again. It just basically gives you an infinite access to your edge jumps and your Polymerizations to make all the fusions you could ever want. Speaking of polymerization, we do play 3. It's absolutely necessary for decks that requires polymerization, like this deck, to play 3 of it. Next up, I know this is going to be another big one that people are going to be contentious about, but I do like to play 3 Fright for Fusion, just to be able to get out more fusions, to be able to go for more damage, and hopefully go for game a bit easier. I've seen some people play only 1 of it, and I've seen some people play only 2 of it. I personally really like 3 just to be able to see it. It is a once per turn, which does suck, but oh well, it's a miracle fusion for the archetype. Next up, we got 3 Toy Vendor. Toy Vendor is absolutely fantastic. And once per turn, you can discard 1 card, draw 1 card, and reveal it. If it is a Fluffal, special summon a Fluffal from your hand. Does not have to be the one that you revealed, but hey, that's cool too if you want to. But if it's not a Fluffal, you send it to the graveyard, which of course means if it's like an Edge of Chain or Edge of Sabers, you don't really care because Chain will get to search and Sabers can revive himself, which is cool. Speaking of, obviously there are multiple ways to stack your deck with this in order to guarantee it's a Fluffal, like with Saw or Sabers, so that is pretty neat too. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, if it's sent to the graveyard in any way, you get to search out a Fluffal or an Edge of Sabers from your deck to your hand. Next up, I got 1 Fright for Factory. I really like this for just being able to churn out more fusions and try to go for more damage. Once per turn, you can banish 1 fusion spell or Polymerization to just basically fusion summon a Fright for monster. So once per turn, get another poly. Then if it is sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 of your banished Fright for fusions, add it to your hand. Really good card all around. I just absolutely love this card. I really like it as a 1 of, sometimes a 2 of. It's easily searchable thanks to Chain and everything. And I mean, if you already got another Patchwork, why not search it or my Fright for Fusion? It just comes down to what you need and everything. Next up, 1 Fusion Conscription. I've been kind of flip-flopping between 2 and 1 of this, but I really have been leaning more towards the 1 of and possibly even cutting it at some point, because Fusion Conscription is super nice for what it does. You reveal 1 of your fusion monsters and add 1 of its fusion materials from your deck to your hand, or deck or graveyard to hand, I should say. But however, you can't use that monster's effects at all that turn, and I don't believe it can be summoned, which sucks. So you can't add Chain and then get the Chain effect to search. That doesn't work. Likewise, you can't add Sabers and then use Sabers effect to revive himself. There are some shenanigans you can do with this card, but honestly, a lot of them, it just kind of really is held back by the fact that you can't use that monster in pretty much any way. So I really have been only limiting myself to 1 of it for now. Moving on, 1 Fool's Burial for just being able to get my graveyard set up, and then 1 for 1. This is to get Fluffal Wings or Fluffal Octopus out with ease in order to either get Wings into the graveyard or to, well, be able to use Octopus's effect to grab back a dude from graveyard. And that's it for the spell and trap card lineup. I do not play any traps. Of course, once we get Fright for Vendor or whatever the hell they're going to call it in TCG, I'm going to definitely be playing that. Moving on, we got for the extract 2, Fright for Tiger. Tiger is fantastic. He's one of the first ones you want to try and make. Whenever he's fusion summoned, you get to destroy cards your opponent controls equal to the number, up to the number of fusion materials you use. So he needs Edge and Sabers plus any number of Fluffals you want. So if you use 3 monsters, including Sabers, you get to destroy 3 cards. If you use 4, you know, same thing. You can only control 1 tiger, so you can't just spam out multiple tigers. But however, you can definitely summon him multiple times in turn. So if like you fuse him off for something else or link him off, and then you fuse and summon another one, you can do more destruction, which is something that you can do quite a few times very easily in this deck. He also has an effect where all Frightfurs you control gain attack equal to number of Fluffals and Frightfurs you control, which is really handy because a lot of the Frightfurs don't have very good attack, at least initially. So that is really nice as well.
Next up, we got Fright for Sheep. Sheep is like one of the other really good ones, especially since it requires chain to go into. So you're going to be making it a lot with chain and, well, one of your other Fluffals, because it just needs chain and a Fluffal. Basically, once per turn, if it is destroyed, you can special summon it, and it gains 800 attack, because why not? So you can ram it into something, let it die, special summon it. Oh, it goes up to 2800. It'll attack over it. That's really good as well. The fact that that's once per turn and it doesn't banish itself or anything is just absolutely phenomenal. And then also, if it attacks, your opponent can't activate anything in response, which is just oh so wonderful. Yeah, any cards or effects, and if it's destroyed, you can spell summon it, but you can only use that effect once per turn. So yeah, it's just an overall really great fusion monster for just being able to just constantly, annoyingly come back and just pump up its attack and be able to run over anything without a care in the world. Moving on, we got 2, Fright for Kraken. Kraken is an amazing fusion monster for the archetype, and is one of the easiest ones to make too, because he needs any Fluffal plus any Edge Imp, which is just wonderful. He can attack twice. Once per turn, you can send a dude your opponent controls to the graveyard, and if he attacks at the end of the damage, at the end of the battle phase, you can switch him to defense, which is pretty good. Also, if you once per turn, if you target one of your opponent's if you target your opponent, he targets and sends it to the graveyard, but he cannot attack directly to turn that he uses that effect, but he can still attack twice, which is really good, so yeah. And then of course, he switches to defense because he's a turtle. Well, he's not a turtle, he's a Kraken, but he is a turtle in the sense that he has 3k defense. So yeah, definitely a card you want to be attacking with and then switching to defense afterwards. Moving on, I got 2, Fright for Sabertooth. Fright for Sabertooth needs a Frightfur plus a, let's see here, plus 1 or more Fluffal and or Edge Imps in order to make. Whenever he is fusion summoned, using at least 3 monsters, you can, he basically becomes a Beals. He cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, and it's just really hilarious, because, it just can't, by battle or card effects. And then if it was fusion summoned, you can target a Fright for in your graveyard, special summon it. This was the card that made Fluffals semi-work under Master Rule 4 before the revision, because, well, you'd fusion summon your tiger, blow up stuff, activate polymerization again, fusion summoning Sabertooth with the tiger, and 2 other dudes to make Sabertooth, and then Sabertooth is a Beals with 2000 attack, because he also increases all your Frightfurs by 400 attack, because why not? It's just such a wonderful card that enables so many OTKs and shenanigans to make. Next up, we got 1 Fright for Wolf. I used to play 2, but honestly, you only really need 1. Wolf is one of your cheese machines, in a sense. He needs Edge Imp Sabers plus any number of Fluffals you can, you can fusion summon him into, and his only effect is that his number of attacks that he can make is equal to the number of fusion materials he had. So this is one of the ultimate cheese cards, like, period, in the game, and is one of the reasons why, in the deck, not just in the game, there's plenty more cheese cards in the game better than him. But I digress. Wolf makes for an amazing, just out of the blue OTK, because basically, ideally, you're going to have Sabertooth and Tiger out. Sabertooth is going to boost everybody by 400. Tiger's going to boost everybody by 300 times the number of Frightfurs and Fluffals you control. Ideally, with those 2, that's a 1000 attack boost for Fright for Wolf, plus, the 300 more, so that's actually 1300, so he's 33. And then you fusion summon him using, 4 or 5 dudes in your graveyard using Fright for Fusion, and then you got a 4 or 5 attacker that's 3300. It's so good, and enables so many cheesy OTKs with him. He's also just good for making as a last-ditch effort to try and push for game, for damage with 2 dudes for double attacking. Next up, we got Dangerous Fright for Nightmare E. She's one of the new ones, and I really want to test her out, and she's turned out pretty decent. Not the best thing in the world, but not half bad either. So she needs 1 Edge Imp monster plus 2 Fluffal monsters to go into. Gains 300 attack for each fairy and fiend monster in your graveyard during your turn only. When this fusion summoning card destroys a monster at battle, you can send Frightfur, Fluffal, and or Edge Imp monsters from your deck to the graveyard equal to the number of the level of that monster that it destroyed. When your opponent activates a card or effect that targets this card on the field as a quick effect, you can banish 1 Frightfur from your extra deck, negate that effect. So the really nice thing is that it has targeting protection. It can get super beefy during your turn and go for even more damage. My only real issue with this card is that its protection is kind of lackluster because your opponent's going to hopefully read it and be like, oh, I'm not going to target that thing with a card effect, and then, oh, well, okay. But there are going to be times where you're going to force them into it, like if that's their only real way of getting rid of it. Also, if like your opponent is playing like Altergeist or something and they try to like get rid of it, like with, I think Metal Seek targets, doesn't it? I feel like it does. I feel like somebody's gonna tell me no, it doesn't. But oh well. And then, yeah, my only other issue is that it doesn't switch to defense after it attacks because it could really use it. The effect where it gets to send dudes from your deck to the graveyard equal to number, like the level of a monster, that's just okay. It doesn't come up too often, mostly because most of the time nowadays people are going to have links on the field, and links don't have levels for obvious reasons, so... yeah, it's not the greatest thing in the world, and it's either this or Daredevil. I really like this more than Daredevil, though, because Daredevil, he's just a straight-up beat stick who doesn't do much else, and I mean, that's okay for what the deck wants to do, but I'm not the biggest fan of Daredevil. I also don't have Daredevil, and I can't find one for the life of me, so that's another reason. But I digress. Then I got one for Leo. He's literally Folkasaurus. He needs Saw and a Fluffal, and he just can pop a dude. He can't attack directly, but he can still attack. And he's level 8, I think. Or is he level 7? I say that, and no, he's level 7. So yeah. He pops something and then inflicts damage to your opponent equal to its attack power. And then also he cannot attack that turn directly, but he can still attack, which is pretty neat. He's got 2400 attack too, so that's pretty good. For the other cards, I got one Cross Shape. It doesn't come up too much like anymore now that like, I don't know, we don't need to worry about things. The nice thing is though that it does have some pretty neat combos with some of the Fluffals and everything, because if you fusion summon pointing to it, it lets you special summon a dude from your graveyard, which is really handy and comes up with once in a blue moon. It's not the greatest thing in the world because again, this deck doesn't need links and can't really make links effectively without sacrificing its ability to make fusions. So yeah. And then we got one number 60, Dugaris, the Timeless. I mainly use this effect to either draw or to double a monster's attack power. The drawing effect is really nice for this deck because it also lets me discard a card, which can get more cards in my graveyard. And then, of course, also trigger their effects if it's like Chain or good old Toy Vendor or something. And then if I use the effect to double on a monster's attack power, that's handy too because I can turn my 2k Frightful Wolf into a 4k beat stick that can attack multiple times. So this card is really handy for what it wants to do and for how it works in the deck. Making rank 4s isn't hard at all in the deck. Tornado Dragon to get rid of back row, and then one number 41 Baguska for the odd time where I get forced to go first and then it sucks. And Baguska is just like, ha, I'm gonna make you wait a turn until I can just OTK you. So that is everything. I really love Fluffals. I can't wait to get my hands on the new stuff. It's gonna be freaking awesome. I haven't had a decent chance to test out everything yet on YgoPro or Ygopro, whatever the hell it's called now. And the new stuff just looks so good. I can't wait to play with it. But I digress. What do you guys think about this current build? I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's such a fun deck to play and mess around with. I'm sure with some refinements it can be even made into a pretty decent competitive deck. But then again, I'm not entirely for sure what the meta looks like right now, so I just don't know. I know that Eldritch is like the big thing, so I don't know, maybe Sheep can do some shenanigans with it. I digress. What do you guys think? Rate, comment, subscribe. See y'all later. Peace out, and have a great day. Thank you all for watching the video. Have a great day. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. Rate, comment, and subscribe, and see y'all later.